All right, I want to thank everybody for making it to class today. I know some of you guys may not make it usually, but I'm just joking. I really appreciate you guys being here. We have Dr. Anna Maria Sacconi. She is a very close friend. She's like a sister. We do lots of research together. And she has like a unique journey, and I think that her journey will really resonate with a number of people in this class. So that's why I wanted her to come here and speak and talk about her journey. You guys can ask questions. If you have to ask something needs to be done offline, we can always pause. So save those towards the end. We can pause and stop recording, and you can ask those specifically. And so I'm going to turn this over, and I will let you present.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Dawson. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Dr. Anna Maria Sacconi, and I'm going to talk about my nonlinear career path to you a little bit and just share how I've went through a journey starting out in business, ending in tech and cybersecurity, and becoming an academic professor. So let's dive in. Just a brief summary of who I am today. So I am currently a technology and cybersecurity expert with very, very solid business foundations. I am working as a faculty, a professor. I really enjoy mentoring students, and I became a professor after a long industry background in various industry, technology, and leadership roles. I am somebody that you would call a non-traditional, non-linear career. I You will see in the rest of the presentation what I mean by that. I went through a very non-traditional journey to end up where I am today. Throughout this journey, I found out that I'm very passionate about technology and using technology to solve important social problems. I will talk a little bit more about that as well. And kind of that core foundation of what led me to all of that is that global citizenry that I think I still carry today in who I am. So let's dive in. I started actually in a business undergraduate degree in international economics and business. I started out here because I thought I was going to be a diplomat. I loved traveling and I loved learning about new cultures. I spoke three languages fluently: English, Hungarian, and French. And I was learning a fourth language, Spanish, while I was in high school. Throughout, I was outstanding in my educational results. I got, straight A's in a lot of different classes. So it was kind of a no-brainer that I wanted to use languages and education to further my career. So that's how I landed on a business degree in international economics. While I was studying, I ended up with scholarships in Belgium and France. So I was able to dive deeper into communication and languages. I actually have a master's degree from France as well. And then as I grew in my educational journey, the next step was a master's degree in leadership and finance. That's what we would probably call an MBA in the US. And I ended up working in the innovation space in a nonprofit where we worked with startups, small, medium-sized companies to help them grow, help them innovate, help them with research and development and grow as companies. So here is where I got really connected to the tech space and started doing not just kind of the systems administration and website administration and all of those things for my nonprofit. Again, remember, this was a nonprofit, so limited resources, which meant a lot of you had to wear a lot of different hats to in your job. And I also ended up working with a lot of tech startups to help them grow and become better in what they do. So through that work, I really got interested in the tech space in general, and I felt like I may have found some level of passion here. So the next step happened when a scholarship presented itself to come to the United States to do a master's degree and to be able to retrain myself officially to be able to kind of step deeper into this tech space. So just going back here, as you can see, I was kind of trying to map some of the patterns throughout the slide. So you see the globe is there quite a few times. You see a different bunch of flags. You see the educational component. You see the tech component starting to creep into all of the steps that I've been going through. So when I landed in the US, I did a master's degree in information technology management, and I was lucky enough to land a tech job in a Fortune 2500 company working straight with the chief technology officer. He was the guy that hired me as an intern originally, and then was able to grow in that company in different roles. I worked with a lot of different tech areas, working from software development to project management, a lot of different spaces, working with the CTO, vice presidents, and all kinds of high visibility, multi-million-dollar projects. I loved it. It was great. It was amazing. But then life decided that it had different plans for me. Remember, I came here as an international student. So I was working on an international student visa at that time and needed to transition to a work visa. Not sure how familiar you all are with that process, if there may be some international students here, but long story short, in every year at that point, there were about 85,000 spots for visas available. When I applied, there were about 270,000 applicants going for those 85,000 spots, which meant lottery system. Doesn't matter what your background is, doesn't matter what your skills are, doesn't matter how good your education and how high your education was, you went for a lottery. So that's what happened. And in that lottery, my application was not actually selected. So I had to kind of pivot and figure out a different career path from here on out because I was not able to stay with my employer. It was a very, very scary situation. Obviously, there was a lot of fear and uncertainty that went into that phase. The question that kept coming back to me was, will I be okay? So at that point, I've worked, this happened in 2014, so I've already been in the US for 4 years at that point, which meant I was lucky enough to have been able to build a nice and solid network in St. Louis, Missouri, where I live. This network was willing to help me, which landed me a new role in higher education as a senior analyst, helping a university here in St. Louis kind of just redesign all of their systems and products and technologies and what they do for research computing. So I ended up at a university being responsible for making sure that big visibility and important projects actually get done. You may be aware that some processes in higher ed sometimes may be slower than, for example, in a Fortune 25 company. So this institution was really excited to tap into some of those skills that I was able to build and generate throughout my Fortune 50 experience. So I ended up in higher education. I started out as a senior analyst. I worked with all kinds of different research computing systems, from administrative tools to high performance computing, and eventually doing a lot in the cloud. Throughout that journey, I was promoted into an architect role, kind of overseeing everything that the university did for research computing. From there, I ended up working on very, very high visibility cloud-related efforts that allowed me to get direct access to a lot of the C-level and VP level folks in the university. Which opened the door to be mentored by the CISO, the Chief of Information Security Officer. So she took me kind of under her wings to ask me to figure out, from a strategic standpoint, what should we do with cloud strategy and cloud as a technology within the institution. So this allowed me to get that access and visibility to all of those senior leaders. And then when a role opened up within her group, as the director of security, she reached out and asked if I was interested. Of course, there was a bunch of fear-related ideas, and if you all know about imposter syndrome, a lot of those thoughts, of course, came into the conversation at that point. I wasn't sure if I was ready. Again, I was a generalist, an architect, designing systems across the board, from cloud to research computing to enterprise applications. I'm not really a security engineer. Am I qualified? Do I deserve this position? Will the team accept me? Now I had a really great mentor. The CISO was an amazing mentor and leader, and she assured me that I should not worry. My previous career has definitely prepared me to be successful in this role. I have been designing solutions, making them resilient and reliable. So this is not going to be a problem. I also have a great team that will support me. I need to be that person that steps in, helps them redesign processes, set the direction, set the strategy, and lead them and mentor them. It was a great experience. It was probably one of my favorite jobs that I've ever done. Except my department head, the CISO, decided to leave a couple of weeks later, which resulted in me all of a sudden becoming the head of the security department. So all of that was a, let me just say, fast track learning into what it means to be a CISO, what it means to run an entire security department and make sure that you are delivering and protecting, delivering technologies and protecting an environment and managing all those risks that are associated with technology. Great experience and wonderful role that I had there. So I'm going to kind of pivot again a little bit because I want to explain some of the other components of who I am and what I've been doing in the last couple of years. And it's related to purpose. If you paid attention in the previous couple of slides, I mentioned passion around technology. I also ended up getting into a very unexpected topic that kind of became my purpose since then. Many, many years ago, it was probably close to 10 years now, I met a human trafficking survivor. It was a completely accidental encounter. I'm not going to get into the story. Long story short, I ended up finding out after that in that conversation how important the role of technology is in human trafficking. This led to some informal research on my own to learn a little bit more about the problem. And eventually it led to me deciding that I'm going to do a PhD about this and dedicate that PhD study to studying this program specifically. So I ended up getting a PhD where, while I was working full-time as an architect and later security director, to combine technology and computational methods in studying this important problem and social problems in general. So at this point, again, life decided that there were some changes that I'm going to have to face. I graduated in 2022 with my PhD, which was great, except during that same month, I was also told that I am going to lose my job as the director of security because the hospital branch of our university was purchased in a merger and acquisition by a different organization, a hospital system. And due to that, my job is going to be transferred to that hospital. So again, of course, it wasn't a complete layoff, but it's very similar when you are working in a position and you get transferred and you don't know. A lot of uncertainties and a lot of fear obviously went through my mind during this time. A little bit later, I worked at this hospital, which was actually a really fun and engaging role. I was focused on innovation and strategy, working under the Chief Information Security Officer in the security team. Kind of being the right-hand person for him to help him with strategy and innovation. Not long after that, though, the previous university where I worked, specifically their educational branch, reached back out and asked, Anna Maria, you have your PhD, you love mentoring and growing people, and you have all this vast experience in technology and cybersecurity. Would you be interested in coming back to work for us as a full-time faculty member? Which is what I did. And at that point, I finally realized how that kind of purpose and passion, the purpose for using technology for the benefit of society and the passion of being a technologist, how I can combine those two. So let me talk a little bit more about how I actually am going about doing that right now. So one key component as a faculty member, as just a person who's passionate about growing people, is that mentorship and interaction with my students and people that I get to interact with to help them grow and figure out what that next level is in their careers. What is that career trajectory that they want to be on or what they may need to be on? The second component of this is that passion for the social problem component and how we can use technology to solve those types of big social problems. So in this space, I am engaged in obviously human trafficking and the exploitation of women and children. I'm really, really passionate about that topic. I think folks like me in technology can do a lot of positive work, and I hope some of you will consider. Policy and ethics related to technology is another component that I'm interested in, and just making sure we are able to democratize cybersecurity, privacy, safety, technology, all of those different topics to just average populations who may not interact with those on a day-to-day basis. How can we protect children, vulnerable populations in the cyberspace? Being a woman in tech, obviously, that is personally an important topic to me. So, considering how we can help different populations that may not be that typical tech bro, and how we can help them succeed and build different careers is very, very passionate and exciting to me. And then, of course, with what we're seeing with artificial intelligence, I've been doing some work on AI and machine learning and how we can tie that into different settings within IS and cybersecurity and just society in general. So, one idea that I feel like has been coming with me from very early on and is still following me throughout this journey is the impact that I can make in the world and how I can make sure that it's positive. So Sheryl Sandberg wrote a book about, just women and how women can lean in to be successful. And she mentioned Harvard Business School's definition of leadership, which I would like to share with you here today. That leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence. So I can only hope that I can be that little impact in my students' life and in some of these other engagements that I'm involved in, so that if just one person's future is impacted, then I will be able to sleep well at night. So why am I sharing this with you? Because obviously it's very personal. But I think there's some very, very important takeaways for you to consider as you're building your careers, as you're considering what jobs you want to do and how you want to show up in life as a professional. Number one, if you can think about and see what I've been going through, is a big part of that was that I am a very, very curious person. I am often reading and researching and studying all kinds of different topics, sometimes too many that I need to manage my time better. But I think curiosity is a very important thing, which brings me to number two, just learning in general. I probably spent 10 to 15 years in higher education just learning. Now, obviously, that also involved a lot of work at the same time, but I am a lifelong learner. I have multiple master's degrees. I ended up going for a PhD after spending many, many years in the industry. I think learning is very important, but I don't want you just think about learning technical skills. I also encourage you to focus on that learning from a soft and human component as well. What are those soft skills that are going to help you stand out to make that next step in your career? We often say technology skills open the door, but the soft skills that are helping you stay there and get ahead, right? So think about all of those things as well as you build your journey. Courage was a very, very important component in my career. You could see me move to multiple different countries. You could see me change careers probably three, four times at this point in my career, and I'm only turning 41 this month. So that's a lot of changes in only just 20, 30 years of adult life. So being able to do that requires courage, but it also requires openness and being able to respond and accept opportunities when they show up, even when you didn't think of them. In my professor journey, I've seen a lot of students come to me with just certain career paths that they envision for themselves. And then as I talk to them and show them different approaches and opportunities that they could take, they often realize, oh, this really resonates much better with me than what I originally thought. How can you find what is that for you and being able and being open for those opportunities when they do present themselves? Obviously, you have to be ready for them. So that means learning and curiosity so that you're prepared. That's what we call the preparation. But part of it is also that openness for the unexpected when it happens. Well, life is also an interesting thing. There's going to be a lot of challenges that you're going to face. I've faced multiple. I didn't even talk about all of them in this presentation, but obviously I've had to deal with different curveballs throughout my career. Those are opportunities that you're not going to realize when you're in them. You're going to realize and learn from them once you're through them. Going back, every single difficult scenario in my life has always resulted in something better. It was very stressful and very scary when they were happening, But looking back, all of those scenarios resulted in something much better and much more amazing in my life. So when you're through those situations, when life says no, you need to think about the opportunities that will result from that, which also means that you have to be comfortable with discomfort and change. Some of those changes, some of those opportunities come because you're willing to take that change. And sometimes it's because you're willing to make that change yourself and lead that change yourself. Another important lesson that I want to make sure that you are all taking notes of as you're growing is the different skills that you're learning throughout that growth. As you can remember, I started out in economic diplomacy. I wanted to be a diplomat. But in that school, I also learned a lot of different skill sets, such as negotiations, that were very helpful later on in my career. What are those skills that the different professions, the different areas, the different journeys and career paths are helping you learn? And how can you apply that in the next move that you want to take? Of course, sometimes when people look at my resume, it can be confusing, but that's kind of where that story comes together for me. Is you don't always know that, right? You don't always know that ahead of time. That story often only starts making sense once you look back and figure it out. Okay, this is how these different components actually meant to be together, kind of like a puzzle. And so that also means that some of you may not have any idea today what your purpose or passion is and what that needs to be. And that's okay. That's where the openness comes in. Sometimes I admire people that when they're 15, 16, they already know what they want to do and they have this clear plan of what that's going to look like. That doesn't always happen. Again, be open and understand that those things can also change. Your life may change. You may get married. You may have children. Life may decide that your health changes. How is that going to impact you? And how is that going to impact your goals? Finally, relationship building is a core component. Throughout my career, a lot of times when I dealt with situations that were uncomfortable or difficult, it was up to the people who were around me to step in and help. And for that, you will get that help when you build good relationships. And that's very important as you continue your journey and you network, so that you have that solid network that can help you when life does decide to throw those curveballs. So to sum up, I want to open this up for questions and ask you all, are you ready? And what is that maybe next yes that you're going to say to an opportunity that you did not expect? Do we have any questions?
All right, everybody, please ask questions. We have an expert here, someone that can relate to an interview, as you may be an international student or a woman, and you're trying to break into this particular career field and understand, um, what are the tools at your disposal to navigate. So she's done that, right? So she's come from a country where this is not her second language, it's her third language, and she's been able to be quite successful. And Carlotta has a question.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
It was so nice to hear. Hold on, my earbuds. So, can you hear me fine?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I had a question. So, I'm also an international student, and I was very moved by like how your purposes and stuff, like being more social. So, do you have any like, is there any group maybe of women that maybe support these kind of causes that maybe it would be a good option to join, or like, do you know of any organizations that are nonprofit most of the times that could maybe like help out? Because I'm also having the same issue where I don't really have a purpose just yet, but I think I was very moved by your presentation. So if there is any like resource that maybe you know of that could help me or some of the other people in the class out, I would really appreciate to know.
Yes. So from a professional perspective, I think, Women in Cyber is a great organization. I'm not sure, Dr. Dawson, if you have a chapter for that at IIT. I think that's a great organization.
We do.
Great organization to start with. You get a chance to network with all kinds of, other women in cybersecurity that can share also their journeys, how they ended up where they are. From a personal, more of a, kind of that social perspective, I think it's ultimately up to what are the things that you personally care about. For me, human trafficking was a totally unexpected conversation that I had with the survivor. I was always a kind of person, I have this massive need for fairness and equity. I really care about equality and making sure people have the same opportunities. I know it's a very ideological thing to have. Life is not like that. The world is not like that. But if you have any specific topic like homelessness or refugees or anything like that, there's definitely organizations, even in Chicago, everywhere in the United States that specialize in those topics. My passion for that came through really a random encounter with a person and then just doing that research myself and getting myself out there and meeting people and saying this is what I care about, and eventually just slowly growing that network. So I ended up being invited to the table based on those conversations and the work that I've been doing with volunteering and all of that. So part of it is also some reflection that you may want to do for yourself and think about, where are my strengths, where are my interests, what do I care about, who do I care about, and kind of mapping that out a little bit. I'm going to be honest with you, a couple of years ago, I've actually started doing a kind of a personal strategy planning kind of exercise where I thought about, these are my skill sets, these are the things that I care about. How would that be one career path where I can bring all of that together, to kind of tie that to who I want to be and what I want to do as a person, as a professional. So that's a great exercise also to do, kind of just like a mind mapping, right? Figure out, what are those things that I care about and I'm interested in, and what are the skills that I bring to the table, and maybe what are the skills that I need to develop to be able to bring to the table. There was a very good presentation many, many, many years ago that I've seen another lady, another leader in industry, who shared kind of that idea of where you need to specialize in based on what you're good at, what you care about, and where you can actually make a living, right? So think about those things yourself, what matters to you, so that you can find that intersection. I'm seeing
We have a question from the chat. So Emily states, how did you financially support yourself through the career education changes?
Yes, a great question. I got a lot of scholarships. Also, a little background. Let me go back a little bit there, because in Europe, in Hungary at the time when I was growing up, undergraduate degrees were free if you were a good student. I didn't have to pay for tuition or anything like that. I was lucky enough to have a mother who was able to provide some support for me moving away from home and going to a different city completely, and being able to provide some funds so I can have a home to live and all of that. That said, I worked throughout a lot of my studies, taking, when I was in my college, the very first couple of years, I actually was working in a printing press overnight, 12-hour shifts. It was horrible. It was really difficult. But trying to, find those opportunities, just like student worker kind of jobs where I was able to make some extra money for just spending on the fun stuff and, extra stuff. For the master's degrees, it was a little bit different. For in the US, I got a full ride scholarship. So obviously I was working before, when I got my master's degree in Hungary, I was already working during that time. So I was able to, and I was living still at home at my mom's house. So I was able to put some money aside and save. And to come to the US, I would have never been able to afford that on my own without a scholarship. My family did not have those resources. But there was a scholarship that was specialized in allowing Hungarian students who are outstanding to come to America and get specialized master's level skills, so that they can grow their career. So ProFellow, right, Dawson? ProFellow is a great resource that if some of you are, looking at there's a lot of different fellowships that will help you get full rides or at least tuition assistance, and then you can, maybe focus on other things. I know for international students, it's kind of tricky because you're only allowed to work on campus. I also encourage you to find those opportunities. student jobs, internships, all of those things are great opportunities because it also ties to your specialty and it helps you get some experience while you're in college to grow those. So when I moved to the US, I got that scholarship, which was a full ride. I not only did they pay for my tuition visas, they actually gave me some spending money to have on my T-Mobile bill and food. That said, I also had some money saved up before I came because it was still an important investment to move to a new country. There's also, what was I going to say? Financial support. So internship, I want to call out internships being very important early on because it's not just from the financial perspective, but also especially international students. But I think it's even not across the board. If you want to get a job right out of college, you can't wait until year 4, year 3.5 to find an internship. You got to start much earlier. You ideally would start doing internships throughout your studies early on so that you can then, especially when you're a master's student. I started working after I had my in the first semester, I started working when I was back in Europe. Here in the US, as soon as I was legally allowed, I started working on campus right away when I was allowed. And then as soon as I was able to do the outside practical training, the curricular practical training, immediately that month, I went and did this internship and then got a full-time job with this Fortune 25 company. So those are very important experiences that will help you shape your career and just open doors because when you graduate, they already know you and they probably will offer a job. What would you say is the biggest obstacle? Does that answer your question, Emily? I think that is a yes. I see another question. Do you want me to just keep going?
Yeah, I'll read it for you. So,
Okay.
what would you say is the biggest obstacle that you have faced as a woman in cybersecurity, and how did you overcome it?
Oh, I don't know if I want to say that.
You can
No.
remove names.
No. So, well, actually, quite a few. One of them is being accepted, but I don't think that was because I was a woman. I think that was because I didn't have a traditional cybersecurity career, and having that title of senior of having the typical path of security engineer, senior engineer, what blah blah blah, and then becoming a director. I didn't have that. I came from a business background, being a business analyst, turning into an architect because I knew the technology, except I didn't want to be a developer, right? And then growing from that architectural into a strategic kind of person who understood how we tap into technology to meet a business need, right? And so, which cybersecurity is the same thing. You are solving risks with the help of cybersecurity. You can be a great engineer in cybersecurity. If you do not understand what the risks are that matter to your company, you're going to be solving the wrong problems in cybersecurity. So that's how I ended up in a director role. But afterwards, I also faced some pushback from some folks in a new role, where I came in as kind of a leader, except those engineers that were already there did not really think that I was going to cut it, right? And so it took me quite a few months and conversations and really difficult situations to prove that I deserve to have a seat at that table. Often meaning of showing them things that they didn't know, right? So, but doing that with the right finesse so that you're not creating enemies at the same time, right? I think that's one of those difficult things for women to do. How are you able to show your skills without coming across as a know-it-all, as a, I don't want to say the word that starts with a B and all of those other things, right? So for those, you really have to go back to that learning and paying attention and listening and growing those skills where you see, the emotional and soft skills, right? The negotiation, the knowing how to be diplomatic and all of those different skill sets that you learn as you grow in your career.
And then the next question is, what kind of tools did you use in your data security job? And what kind of tasks did you have to carry out in that role?
Okay, so I was a director of security, so I was not an engineer. We used a lot of different tools, though. My engineering team did. So we were responsible for everything from operations to governance, risk, and compliance. So that meant having EDR tools for protecting endpoints. We were actually migrating over from firewalls from Cisco to Palo Alto. The entire shop was transitioning from Cisco shop to a Palo Alto shop. So we had a lot of different tools that we were using through them, things like Prisma Cloud for the cloud DLP processes, like I mentioned, next generation firewalls. We did proof points for email security. I'm trying to think about the whole portfolio. There was a lot. You're asking me some difficult questions. This was many years ago. For GRC, we did a lot of audit and compliance activities. We had risk registries that we managed. Pretty much just the whole landscape of managing a cybersecurity program within an enterprise, right? From managing endpoints and protecting endpoints to servers, making sure we have good asset management processes in place. We didn't really have a tool for that. I mean, obviously SCCM and stuff like that were in place, but the processes were really not set well for those. So we were actually looking at some potential tools that we could bring in to help with that and automate. We did Rapid7 for vulnerability and assessments, and working with the different product owners to make sure that they fixed and patched those vulnerabilities. So I would work a lot with the different departments, obviously, to make sure that there's the synergy and collaboration happening. We also did, oh my gosh, what is the ticketing system? No, ServiceNow. ServiceNow was the main ticketing system that we used for just managing the actual tasks that my team had to do. We did a lot of process engineering there to make sure that the processes are set in place so that my team can work on a repeatable basis when it's operational, and we can have time and energy and resources left to do the more architectural work where we have to design new things. What else? I don't know, I'm probably forgetting a lot of things. What space did I not touch on? What kind of tasks did you have to carry out in that role? Yeah, so everything from, making sure endpoints are protected, servers are protected, responding to incidents, GRC, governance, risk, and compliance stuff, managing the DLP processes, executive reports to our board when Log4j hit and they were worried we are going to have a breach, and just making sure that you communicate and tell them, we're doing what we need to, we have a response in place and we're going to be able to react and respond and recover if it happens. So those kind of things, when you're at a leadership level like that, you're pretty much overseeing everything. So you don't do much of the hands-on anymore. But you're going to have to understand all of those components and how they work together, and also what are the tools that you need to bring in, like I mentioned, for example, for asset management and the new next generation firewalls that we decided to deploy. What are those best innovative tools that you can bring in to help with your strategic priorities as a leader?
Okay, we have another question for Alvaro, and he says, hello, given the current tough market, what advice would you give international students looking for work? Thank you.
Yes, that's a tough one. So I'm going to be honest, you must have probably plan B and C, right? Plan C is Canada. You guys are doing a very, very valuable degree. I'm not sure which specific degree you are all in, but I know it's cybersecurity related. So no matter what specialty you choose, you're going to get good scores for immigration purposes in Canada for being able to, get a work permit there. That's kind of a joke, but also not. Why I'm saying this is you have to, again, be able to respond to life's throwing curveballs at you. Primarily, you need to really figure out where you want to be, but be able to also be flexible, right? Number one is internships as soon as you can. If you cannot find, if you cannot work on campus right now in the IT department or whatever, as soon as opportunities open up, maybe your faculty, maybe your professors have some opportunities for research, whatever those are, make sure you take advantage of those. Really, ideally, if you're looking for industry work, though, you have to have that US work experience on your resume to be able to land the job once you graduate. For that, you need to start working for employers in whatever capacity you can, related to your job, obviously, to make sure that they consider you for that, and to make sure that there's that American entry on your resume with an American job title, with an American company, right? So the approaches for that is you do a internship during your school. Another option for that is also finding nonprofit companies where you can volunteer and do project work, who may be willing to sign off on those international paperwork requirements that you have to meet. They may not pay you, but they may be able to at least give you some work experience that you can then put on your resume. Again, the important part here is having a job that's attached to an American company so that they see that you have work experience in the US. That said, visas are going to be tough to secure. At my time, it was 270,000 applicants for 85,000 visas. Now it's probably triple that. I don't know. It's probably scary. So you have to also be able to respond to that not happening. And that's when I say option C, because option B is also universities. Some universities are able to sponsor, just like for me, the visa that's under that number. I wasn't able to get it because of the lottery, but universities are not under that cap. So if you have highly specialized skill sets to work in an IT department, which is what I did, I was working in research computing. Not many people do that. So if you work in a specialized area, then you can also, the university can apply without having to go through that more difficult process for a visa, as long as the qualifications match. So that's an option. That said, universities, because they have to pay for that process, universities for entry-level jobs may not be willing to sponsor that, right? So again, being able to be flexible, and then again, option B, A or B, option 2B is, what is that other additional higher education schooling that you may be able to take so you can continue on that OPT process, so that you extend the time to look for industry-related jobs. I know a lot of us want to have, like, throughout the students that I had a lot of international students as well. Not many of them were unfortunately able to secure jobs. The ones that did, they usually got a lot of help from me to get introduced and all of that. So network, right? Make sure you tap into all of those industry associations, networking groups, whatever things that you have in Chicago and where you live. Here in St. Louis, we have OWASP St. Louis chapter. We have SC Squared chapter. We have cybersecurity conferences all the time. We have Women in Cyber. We have all of these organizations. They do meetings. International students can be InfraGard. But if you're American, InfraGard. Lot of these organizations have meetups, happy hours, things like that. Go mingle, network. Go when they have a talk. You can probably go and meet up and find some of them. If they have a talk, go network, talk to people, and just invite them out for coffee. Just talk to them, see what they're doing, see who's looking, build those relationships so that you are ready when those jobs come up, right? I mean, and again, going back to what I was trying to say a minute ago, maybe you say you want to be a penetration tester. Let's say that's what you want for your career. That's the title you want. Maybe that's going to be hard. I'm not saying that job specifically is going to be hard. I'm saying maybe that specific position today, when you're applying today, is going to be hard. But there's another job that does this and that. I don't know, something in the SOC, maybe something. Apply, right? Because once you have your foot through the door and you demonstrate your skills, that you can still get chances of moving within the company. When I started out at my Fortune 25 company, I started out working with the chief technology officer, which obviously set me up really well to meet and work with all of these different departments. But because I met all these people in all these other departments, and they saw how I worked, when opportunities happened in those different departments, I was able to go and try those opportunities and take different roles within the company so that I can build more skills and build a bigger network within the company. So, once you have your foot through the door, there's going to be more and more opportunities for you that open up if you do a good work and you demonstrate obviously what you can do. So that's also another one. Dawson, what am I missing?
I think that's good. Also with healthcare, a lot of people don't realize this. Like the U.S. has a lack of professionals in healthcare. So even with healthcare IT, if you work at hospitals, they also, I believe, have like unlimited number of people they can sponsor. That's the same thing with universities. They don't have restrictions. So when you think about HB1 or whatnot, these places, they don't have restrictions. Universities and healthcare. That's why people will maybe get their nursing degree in Ethiopia and they'll be recruited to come to the States. So these are two particular industries that will recruit. Now, the reality is in higher education, not every job pays a lot. Well, many jobs don't pay a lot, right? So you may not be making the money you could be making working at like a large tech company, but you will get sponsored. So you have to weigh like sponsorship or money, like what is more important? So you have to think about this strategically. And when you mentioned that you should be applying for jobs and internships immediately, you should always be hunting. You should be out there. Like if it's unpaid, but it gets you experience and it gives you letters of recommendation, do it.
Yeah.
That website you mentioned, ProFellow, everyone here, regardless of if you're a U.S. citizen or not, you should be on ProFellow and you should be tracking fellowships and funding opportunities, right? One of the students here, they asked you about how do you fund your education. When you did your PhD, you was actually an employee at St. Louis University, so it was free.
Yeah.
There's a free PhD.
Yeah.
St. Louis University is a pricey institution, right? And imagine she got a free PhD. It's a well reputable university, and she paid nothing for it because she worked at the university.
Yeah.
So you have to think about different ways to make things work, right? You may not get that title. I always jokingly, like when I first started out, my title technically was engineer. It was information assurance analyst, but I use that to pivot into an engineering role. And so you have to think about that. Like I always tell people, if they pay me $100,000 to be janitor, street sweeper, that's what I'll be doing. I'll have a broom, I'll be on the street, and I'll be sweeping the dirt. You have to have that mentality. You can't be very closed-minded when you look at these roles. Just because it doesn't state this particular engineer or technician, you need to get your foot in the door. That's the most important part. Because once you get your foot in the door, like you said, you can easily navigate. You can see roles that are open. There's always jobs that are internal that the external applicants can't see, and you will probably receive priority for these jobs. Now, Grace, she typed something. She says she asked, "Did you always want to mentor and tutor? Was it part of your dream or passion? I'm a person who has a passion for tutoring, but lots of my plans turned upside down last year. So I had to reschedule all my plans for a future dream job. Any suggestions I can use?"
Great question. I guess I did do some tutoring when I was younger also. I genuinely love helping grow people. I see as it more of I like helping people. And I think part of it is it makes me feel some of the best professional feedback that I've ever gotten was from team members that worked for me who expressed, or one of them was really a wife of a team member that works for me who reached out that, his husband was ready to quit before I became his supervisor. And since I've been his boss, he's like a whole different person and he's happy in what he's doing. And that's because of how I was able to understand who he was, what his skills were, where he shined, and where he was going to be able to just be successful in what he did, which genuinely led to happiness for him. So to me, that's very satisfying and rewarding. I'm not sure if that was always the plan. I don't think it was the plan. I don't think I was going to be, I kind of knew that I was going to do a PhD. I never was sure that I was going to be a professor. But even in my industry career, I did a lot of mentorship and leadership in that sense, that even when I was not in an official leadership capacity, I always mentored people around me. So I would say, yes, that was probably a part of who I have been for a long time. Any suggestions on, I I'm without knowing what is the pivot that you had to do, it's kind of hard to say what would be good suggestion there. But if you care about mentoring and growing people, I highly encourage that you consider a job in either leadership or education. Um, because I mean, that's when you lead teams, you can have that direct impact. And when you mentor students, you can have that direct impact. That could also be working in career services, of course, and doing things like that. I'm not trying to tie you to leave cybersecurity programs and become a career services member, but Women in Cyber would be a great organization for you to try and talk to them, because they do a lot of that. They do a lot of the mentor and grow people and different programs. And maybe try your leadership class, right? Learn a little bit about what goes into being a leader in industry and see if you like that, or if you'd like that, because obviously we have to kind of learn those skills. I want to go back more to what you said. Yeah, I forgot to mention the funding with PhD, because yeah, obviously that was a big thing. And if some of you are probably considering PhD as an option, uh, yes, getting a job at an institution could be a great way to help you finance that, because a lot of PhDs are, even though they can't give you the free tuition to be a graduate assistant, but in Boston and MIT making $30,000, you're not really going to live like a king, right? So how can you find those different opportunities through Poor Fellow and other things?
All right. I think that's all the questions. If there's questions later, I'll collect them from the students and then I will email them to you.
Okay.
But I do want the students to realize, she has spoken at our Shy CyberCon, done lots of really good research with us. She's on our advisory board for C2 Safe. So in terms of like a curriculum and things like that, she has been instrumental in helping us really understand like where the market's going. And we don't really do much in healthcare in terms of like faculty, but she was the one individual who really had pulse on what is happening in terms of cybersecurity and healthcare, as that is a growing sector, and there is a lack of professionals in that particular sector. So I want you guys to think about that, right? I will send out announcement talking about what we'll further be doing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually stop the recording, and then we can have an off the record chat.
And I want to kind of reiterate, because yeah, healthcare is actually a very interesting space in cybersecurity, because they also deal with very specific, it's kind of like research also. They deal with very specific challenges that you may not see in industry, because they do some of the tools and technologies that they have to use for imaging, for example, and things like that. And just like when you think about patching, some of those things may not exist, and how can you get creative with solutioning? And one more thing that I really want to add as a co-lad for Dr. Mo, thank you so much for having me here. Just a personal touch point with you all in the class. So Professor Dawson is actually part of the reason, a big part of the reason of why I decided to change careers and become a professor, and kind of leave that in. I never really left the industry, because I'm still working a lot with the industry, but to kind of make that significant pivot out of a full-time industry role and into more of a faculty associated role. He's been one of my close friends and mentors for many years throughout that journey. So you guys are in great hands with a professor like that. You don't even know how lucky you are that you have somebody like that who can guide you through that journey. So when you have professors like that, make sure you tap into that opportunity, having somebody as amazing as him be a mentor and a person that you can follow and look up to as you figure out your own journey.
You have me blushing, and I can't blur that out.
All right.
I'm going to stop the recording.